Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Amanda Ray, and when I was 17, almost 18 years old, I left the polygamous cult that I was born in. If you're interested in hearing more about my story, I will leave the links to my videos in the description box down below. Today I have my cousin Michelle here. She also has her story on my channel, just the part 1, and I'll leave that link down below as well. Before we get into any of this video, I do want to have a trigger warning at the beginning. We will be discussing some things that are really hard to hear, so if you're sensitive to things like child abuse, cases of
child death,
yeah, there's going to be a lot in here. I don't want to just name every single thing, so if you don't want to hear any of that, I understand. Skip this video. I just wanted to put this at the beginning of it because this is going to be a really heavy video. If you guys remember watching Michelle's video, we did kind of brush on this topic.
From what, there was rumors being said that I honestly believe, but from what I heard, your dad should have ended up in jail because I had heard that he had beat a 18-month-old baby so bad that the baby had passed away. And I didn't believe it at first until I started becoming close friends with your half-brother. And he confirmed a lot of that stuff. He said that type of stuff happened all the time.
and like even with my dad, I've seen my dad hit babies. Like my little sister, I remember my dad went home with us from the baseball fields after baseball, and the baby was crying on the way home, and she couldn't even sit up. So she was
like a newborn.
A newborn, yeah, almost like she wasn't brand new, but she couldn't sit up. But she was crying on the way home, and I remember when we got home, he took her out of the car seat and was hitting her when we were sitting in the car, and I remember crying. And I'm like, why are you beating her? She's not even one. But yeah, and even my sister, she got hit in the forehead with the metal baseball bat, and my dad had to give her stitches, and he wanted to beat her because she was crying, and my mom had to stop him and say, you can't beat her.
This topic is a story that was really a big secret in the order, and I didn't even know what the truth was till after I left the order. And I actually asked you, one of my first conversations with Michelle after we both had left was, did this actually happen? So if you remember in the video I filmed with Michelle, we kind of brushed on it, but it kind of seemed like you were really nervous to talk about it, right?
Yeah, I've never been comfortable talking about it, partly because it is a very hard topic to discuss, but also because of who it involves. And so I always felt and that's why I never have done a part 2, because I'm like, there's so many holes from, I know what happened with my life, but I felt like there were so many holes that I didn't directly discuss or talk about.
Right. And when I asked you on the phone, I remember feeling like I shouldn't have asked, because it almost felt like you were feeling like you shouldn't tell the story, or you were scared to tell the story. Kind of similar to when we leave the cult, we don't know if we should be lying still about our lives, and we don't know if we should still be protecting our abusers, because our whole life we were protecting them.
But not only that, but it's so traumatizing that you're like, should I just pretend to be this person that I've been pretending to be, because the truth is hard to look at. The truth is really hard and really sad.
And sometimes you want to live in this, I mean, it's not fairy tale
this make-believe.
World, but yeah, make-believe for a little while longer, because processing all the trauma is a lot to have to handle. So I remember talking to you about it, and you basically, Michelle did confirm what happened, but she didn't go into details. So today we're actually going to talk about the details of everything that had happened. Do you want me to say kind of what I heard in the order, or do you want to just go into the history of it all?
You can go into what you heard, and then I'll tell my memory of it in different stages of my life.
So my version of the story is going to be different because I'm not in the family, but when I was growing up in the order, I heard rumors that your dad had, there was multiple stories, your dad accidentally committed murder, basically. Your dad accidentally killed a baby. Your dad on purpose killed a baby. And the wrong person went to prison for it. That's what I heard. And then the older I got, then I became friends with people in your family that we didn't necessarily talk about that story, but they told me more and more about how abusive their dad was, your dad was.
Mm-hmm.
So then I started to be like, did he do this? And no one was telling me the truth, no, and it was such a hush-hush thing, but I remember my mom even saying that the wrong person went to jail for that.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally, leaving the order, I asked you, and that's when I finally got the truth.
The straight answer.
Yeah, the straight answer.
Yeah, so right from the beginning, I moved in with my grandma in 2001. So I was born in 2000, moved in with my grandma in 2001, the beginning of the year. So I was not even 1 year old, and I started living with my grandma. And I remember I called my grandma Mom. She was my mom, and my aunt was like my second mom. And then when I was 3, then we moved back in with my actual mom. And it was kind of like an adjustment. And I feel like my mom, like looking back now, I feel like my mom looked at me more as a sibling than as a daughter, because she wasn't there for like 3 years, the first 3 years of my life.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was just another add-on when she finally and by the time we moved back with her, she was pregnant and about to have another kid.
Mm-hmm.
But even she would call my grandma, she would call her mom when she talked to me. But my other siblings, she would say grandma. And even my grandma would call me, and my uncles, they all would say, I'm like their sibling rather than their grandkid.
Really?
Yeah, so I think that's why I got so close to my mom, because I know that we had talked about, why were you so close to your mom?
Mm-hmm.
I think she saw me more as a sibling and a, sister that she can confide in, rather than a helpless child that was supposed to depend on her.
Right.
Because in my most helpless years, she wasn't there.
Right.
But anyways, and then as I got older, we lived with my mom, and it was never, at first it wasn't explained. Around the age of 6, 7, then I was told, your mom went to jail for something she didn't do. That's why she was gone. And I was like, huh, okay. And I started to ask questions as I did, and they said, oh, it was like a joke. It was like an April Fool's joke, and then they took it really far. Or they thought she took it really far. And it, never really made sense. So as I got older, I would ask more.
Did you ever ask her? Or were you just asking the people that were talking about it?
Just asking who would, tell me. I never asked her at this point because I wasn't close to her. She was just, like I said, she wasn't really like my mom.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't close to her until I got a lot older.
Mm-hmm.
She was just, the one who took me home at night.
Yeah.
Because, until I was 3, my grandma was my mom.
Yeah.
And I grew up knowing her as my mom. They didn't tell me, call her mom, but she was, obviously there. So I wasn't ever close to her. I don't feel like I really looked at her as a mom until I got older as well. Because it was just all of a sudden, you're 3, okay, go back and live with this person that you don't remember seeing.
I don't know if I should ask this right now, but I'm curious. It's because she was in jail?
She was on probation.
Oh, okay, so your mom was out. That's why your mom was out of the picture.
Yeah, so she could see us, but it was supervised visits. And I didn't have memories of her coming to visit, but I have pictures. Mm-hmm. But then I got older and I said, oh, she went to jail because she was babysitting and a baby fell out of the high chair.
And this is what your family's telling you?
Yeah, just different people in the order. And then another story, this was closer to my mom, but my mom didn't tell me these words, was that the baby slipped and fell in the tub. And then I asked my mom, why were you giving her a bath at daycare at my mom's house? And she said, well, sometimes, if your kid gets dirty and you just rather just throw him in the tub. And then I was like, okay, but where is this high chair story coming in? Because none of the stories were adding up. So then when my mom had that stillborn baby, her water broke, and her water broke 2 weeks before she actually delivered the baby. And because she was scared to call my dad and waste his time, because she wasn't absolutely positive her water broke, she waited. And the baby ended up dying inside of her, and it was killing her. But she delivered that baby, and it was 2015 that baby was born. And she took, we had a couple pictures. She had an outfit that she saved, and she went in her room, in her closet, to put it in. I guess she had this bin of the babies that, like, didn't make it.
A bin of babies?
No, a bin of, like, memories of the babies.
Oh my
Sorry.
gosh. Okay, yeah. So I'm glad I asked that so that people wouldn't have to
No,
clarify.
no,
So basically she had a bin of like memories of all of the miscarriages.
Yeah, well, like, there was a picture of, like, a little girl who was, like, super early in her pregnancy, and she had a picture of it in there. Just
How
like,
many were there?
there was a couple.
Okay.
There was, yeah, I don't remember exactly how many, but there was, so that girl, and I asked her, like, where was this baby in the line of all of our kids, and she told me, and then I said, "Okay, whose blanket is that?" And it was like I believe it was a pink blanket, and I said, "So was there another girl that there was a miscarriage of? Like, what is that?"
And that was in the bin?
Yeah, so she would like pick an outfit that she really liked and was, like, going to be the first outfit of the babies and put it in that bin. And so there was, like, a pink blanket. I believe it was pink. But I said, "Whose blanket is that?" And she said, she, like, looked at me and she said, "It's Rhoda's." And Rhoda is that baby who died at her house, and she went to jail for the death. And I said, so I was 15 at the time, and I said, "Why would her mom give you a blanket if you killed her kid?"
When we refer to daycare, when we refer to Rhoda, that's what we're talking about. Was Rhoda was in the daycare
At my mom's house.
At your mom's house when she had passed away.
Yeah.
So you're trying to get to the bottom of how did Rhoda die?
I knew she died at my mom's house, but like I said, it was the story of, oh, she slipped in the tub. Oh, the story of she fell out of the high chair. Okay, what is the story? And if, like, as a mom myself, if someone accidentally kills my kid, I will never speak to you again. Like, I don't care that it was an accident. I will have to heal so much to be able to get to a point to even look at you. But yet this mom and my mom would not only did she give her a blanket from her baby, they were best friends. Growing up, we helped her move. They would go yard selling on weekends. And I was like, what? This is not making sense.
Because did that friendship continue even after your mom?
No, it started after my mom.
Oh.
Yeah.
It started after the baby passed away?
So we were neighbors with them before, but, like, it grew after.
Wow.
So it was, like, so weird to me. I never understood why they were, like, so seemingly close for order members.
Right.
But so I asked my mom, I said, "Why would she give you a blanket if you killed her kid?" And she looked at me and she said, "Michelle, I didn't kill her kid." And I said, "Okay, what happened then?" And then she told from the things that she told me, and from what I believe, from all the things I've heard, I believe that it was my dad that killed the baby. And I will go into what happened. And there's, like, news articles, there are different things, but this happened in 2001.
I do want to say this part while you're finding that. I have referenced this. I should have said this actually earlier in the video. I've referenced this story on my story when I left the order, because if you guys want, I have that always linked in the description box down below. But when I was calling the police, when I had been attacked, it's so lucky that the cop that happened to be driving back to the station, he just heard my call and he pulled over, and it happened to be the same cop that showed up at your mom's house to see the baby. And he told me from his mouth that he knew that wasn't an accident. Like, he knew that the Kingstons were trouble and the Kingstons were liars, because when he showed up, he knew that baby had to have been thrown. That's what he said.
And that police officer is actually quoted in an article that I'm going to read it.
Really?
But because my mom's house was, like, down the street.
Wow.
But, so another story that I was told, like, after I found out that, like, after I was told it was not my mom and that it was my dad, I was told that my dad was taking a nap at my mom's house because it was down the street from the office. And the baby was crying, and he woke him up, so he beat her to death. And before I go into the facts as well, do you remember in my story when I told you that my brother would hit me? And my mom said, "You need to hit her or we have to take her to dad, and you know dad won't stop." That's why. Because we knew he would not stop. If he could do that to an 18-month-old baby, then what is he going to do to me?
Right.
Because to him, I would imagine that he thought he was holding back.
Wow. That is so messed up.
It happened I believe it was Wednesday, January 17th, 2001. Police were called to the home of Michelle Afton Michaels, January 16th, 2001. As members of the Kingston Polygamy clan mourned the loss of 18-month-old Rhoda Wright, the daughter of Kingston leader Paul Kingston, and Lori Wright, prosecutors are expected to review the case this week for possible charges. Rhoda died at 8:59 p.m. Friday, that was January 19th, at Primary Children's Medical Center. The state medical examiner will now try to determine her cause of death. The only explanation being offered for Rhoda's injuries came from the woman who was babysitting her, Michelle Michaels, 26. Michaels told South Salt Lake police that Rhoda's head hit the tile floor at her apartment after she apparently fell or slipped off a chair. Information contained in documents filed in 3rd District Court reveal police are investigating the possibility of child abuse. Sorry.
This is a lot, yeah.
No, this is the article. We have not even gotten into the facts of what was found.
I didn't even realize your mom was only 26, too.
It says, according to the affidavit, Detective said that he was in the operating room while trauma surgeons tried to stop the bleeding in Rhoda's brain. At one point during the operation, one surgeon explained, "They beat the shit out of this girl."
So it was obvious. It was so, and like what the police officer said too, it was so obvious that this baby did not just fall. And that's why someone had to go to jail.
The police officer asked the surgeon what he meant. The surgeon replied, "The injury, which included a 3-inch fracture in Rhoda's skull, were more consistent with a blunt force trauma than a fall from a chair." Michaels was arrested late Tuesday night and booked into the Salt Lake County Jail on investigation of second-degree felony abuse. She was released Thursday after posting bail. I was told that Paul was actually the one that paid the bail, which was another thing that never made sense, because I'm like, if you killed their kid...
Why are they paying for your bill?
Yeah. Police searched Michael's apartment just before 9:30 p.m. Tuesday. The warrant says police were looking for any blunt instruments or weapons that may have been used to injure the child. The search warrant says investigators were also looking for any possible signs of evidence tampering or someone trying to conceal the crime. Some of the 14 items seized included blood-stained clothing from the kitchen and bathroom, a yellow chair, a blanket, a phone receiver. Michaels told the officer that after Rhoda fell, she called the baby's mom to tell her Rhoda had fallen and bumped her head. Michaels, according to the affidavit, said Rhoda was bleeding from the mouth and nose, but otherwise was feeling all right and even had a bowl of cereal and juice. Soon Rhoda vomited. Sorry.
No, this is a lot. And it sounds like that they...
This is not even...
We're just touching the surface.
This is just what the public was told.
Okay, so if you can't handle it this far in, then maybe click away. But we decided to share this story because this story deserves to be told.
Because Rhoda deserves to have the truth be told about her, and not only Rhoda, but the mom. Rhoda's mom deserves to not have to hide behind this lie, and even my mom. Like, my mom deserves justice for
and it's
all of
not
it.
just these people, too. It's like...
Everybody.
All of us were taught to lie. All of us were taught to lie for what? People like your dad were willing to do stuff like this and then get away with it?
No, but not only that, but one of my brothers, their wife's mom is Rhoda's mom's sister, and she hated my mom because of this.
And because she really thought that.
And
that
she
happened.
didn't want to let her daughter marry my brother, and Paul said, "You need to let her."
Wow, so Paul wasn't even telling
Because Paul knew.
Yeah, this small group of people knew.
No, so as they said, they called the mom, Rhoda's mom. They called, from what I was told, they called Paul. And the neighbors said they saw my dad's car leaving.
Wow.
They told the police that. We saw this kind of car leave before they called you.
The scene of the crime.
They came up with a plan, so they didn't call the police till hours later.
Wow. Do you want to read through all of this, or do you want me to just put them on the screen so you don't have to read through everything?
Well, I'll read part of it.
Maybe just some of the important parts.
Yeah. And Michaels told police, the original fall happened about 10:15 a.m. Lori Wright said she was contacted and arrived at the apartment at 11:20. Police were notified at 11:49. The affidavit does not say how much time elapsed from when Rhoda originally fell to when she went into cardiac arrest. Paul Kingston made a rare statement to the media Friday afternoon saying his polygamous family has been prosecuted by the media and police because of their religious beliefs. He called Rhoda's fatal injuries nothing but a terrible accident. So, again, if you kill my kid, I'm not going to say, oh, you're just after me because my hair is brown. You're just after me because I don't believe in God, because I have tattoos. How could you...
Yeah, he's like deflecting from the point, and they do that a lot. They do that a lot. Oh, you guys are being prejudiced because we're polygamous. No, someone died.
No, we're not looking into you because you're polygamous. We don't care. We couldn't care less. Mm-hmm. We're looking into you because there was a death, and you should care as the kid's dad.
Exactly, and the fact that, like, if anything, you should be glad that they're investigating. Not, like, mad about it.
If you're a normal person.
If that's not, like, proof that he's guilty, I don't know what else is. And I honestly am shocked that this ended the way that it did. Like, I mean, we'll get to the end of the story, but this whole thing is so twisted.
And another thing that I was told was that there were old bruises and there were new bruises. The old bruises, this is what I was told, and this is what I honestly believe. The old bruises were from Paul. The new bruises were from my dad.
Wow.
Which is why Paul was so willing to go along with it.
How old was the baby?
18 months. So she was born August 19th, 1999, and she died January 19th, 2001. Michaels was charged with second-degree felony homicide in February 2001. Michaels entered an Alfred plea, which means the prosecution gets the conviction and the defendant can continue to assert her innocence. The charges against Michaels were reduced to a Class A misdemeanor, which could be expunged in the future, which they eventually were. And that's what I remember. My mom did get it expunged.
So
She
it's not
tried
even on her record anymore. Wow.
No, she tried to get it expunged in 2006, and I guess that was denied because I remember going with her to the courthouse or wherever it was, and I said, "What are we doing here?" And she said, "I'm getting my record expunged from that."
And they are all known to do this,
and
expunging the records. And I don't think that should be legal.
Well, I asked her, I said, "How can you get it expunged if there was, like, it's murder?"
Yeah.
And she was like, "It just doesn't matter."
I think they've made big payments, no?
Well, the police knew that it wasn't her.
Wow.
And they said, like, from what I was told, they told my mom, we know it wasn't you. We know that you cared so much about this baby. Just give us who it was, and you don't have to go away from your kids. You don't have to be taken away from anything. Just give us who it was. And from what I was told, my mom just looked at them and then looked down and cried and said, "I can't."
Wow.
That's what I was told.
I can imagine there was so much pressure put on her. But I did not think that she was 26. Like, that's a year younger than me. I can't imagine going through whatever I'm sure there was so much happening all at once and she didn't know what to do.
Well, and I was also told that they told her, like, because, incest is, like, supposedly illegal.
And she's married to her uncle.
Yeah, so I was told that they said, if you call the police and he is involved, then you're going to jail either way. So
they threatened her?
Well, they said, you're going to go to jail because you married your uncle and you have all these kids. You have 5 kids, because I'm the 5th kid. You have 5 kids with your uncle. So either you can go to jail and he can go to jail, and you can take all of the dad away from all of his kids, or you can pay the price.
Wow. So she felt like...
So, like, think about it.
She was
like,
back into a corner.
Mm-hmm. So it's like, well, why would I take all those kids' dad away from them when we're both going to go to jail anyways? Well, I'm going to go to jail anyways. Rhoda would have had to fall from a building 2 stories or even higher to sustain the injuries that she went through.
The cop, too, said that she had to have been thrown, so I'm like, how the hell was he abusing this kid? Was it in front of other kids? Like, did he just have no...
We were all there. Well, so there were 11 kids there, including my mom's kids, I believe. The police said that she would have had to fall from a building 2 stories high or even higher. And the story was that she fell 2 feet to the kitchen floor.
The high chair story is what they ended up telling the cops.
Yeah. So this was her injuries. Rhoda suffered a fractured skull, swelling in the back of the head, which is the lower back part of the brain that controls life functions. She also lost one tooth, had several loosened teeth, and had nearly bitten through her tongue, which could be caused by a recoil injury following blunt force to the back of the head. The judge sentenced my mom to 36 months probation instead of the 1 to 15-year prison term that could have been imposed. Quote from the judge, "I think you have suffered a lot. Now only you and your conscience know whether you are responsible for the death of this child. If you did it, there isn't a sentence in the world this court could give that would be enough. If you didn't, the court's sentence is far too much." Quote from my mom, "I maintain my innocence. I loved little Rhoda with all my heart. This has been a terrible tragedy for all of us. I could not plead guilty to something I didn't do." And I was shocked because I never knew that she, I thought she just said, I can't. That's what I was told.
So she
But
was claiming it wasn't even her that had the baby fall, or what was? I don't
because
understand what the story was that they were getting her for.
Well, at first, then they were saying, "Oh, it's from a high chair fall," and then they were saying we know this could not she can't bite through her tongue from a high chair, and loose teeth. So I think then at that point she's like, "Well, I didn't do it,"
and then she just maintained that the rest of the time.
Yeah.
So then someone had to pay for it.
And she said, and then it says that quote from Paul.
In court?
I don't know if it was in court.
Oh.
I believe it might have been. Kingston's voice choked with emotion as he recounted how much he loved his young daughter, and he described Michaels as one of the gentlest, kindest people I have ever known in my life, and declared his belief in her innocence.
Wow.
With that, I'm like, how could you just throw her, have her miss her 3 years of her kid's life?
Yeah. And your dad says the same to Bad and I.
He wasn't even anywhere near it
because
they wanted to keep him so far away. And my mom even told me, and my grandma, so we went to my grandma's care, and my grandma thought that my dad would help help babysit us while my mom was on probation.
Yeah.
He didn't come over. He didn't he wouldn't check on us. He wouldn't help pay for anything. And I was told by my mom that Paul actually had to tell my dad after the probation was over, and after we even got back with my mom, Paul had to say, "Okay, you can start treating her like a person again. Go to her house, give her some attention.
What?
She's ready to have more kids." Paul had to tell my dad that. And that's why in my story too that I told you, my mom didn't want to hit us. My mom would not hit us for a long time until my dad said, "Either you do it or I do it." That's when she started. And I was 8 years old.
Being an ass after all of that.
Well, because he didn't have to do anything.
Right. Did you notice resentment or any negative feelings from Paul or Paul's wife that had lost the baby towards your dad?
So when I noticed the mom was, like I said, really close to my mom. She didn't, there were a few instances that I remember that she was talking to my mom and my dad walked over and she would immediately want to walk away. She would immediately find a reason why she had to walk away.
Because she knew.
The only, the obituary was in the same news article that they left it up, and it was, "Our beautiful little Rhoda returned home to Heavenly Father on Friday, January 19th, 2001. She was born Thursday, August 19th, 1999. In the short time she was with us, she added so much to our lives. Her smiles, hugs, and funny, lovable personality were a blessing to all of her family. Her energy, intelligence, and love of life will be missed by all who knew her. We know she will be well taken care of until we are able to hold her again." How could you have an open casket? How can you?
So they couldn't, right? They didn't have an open casket. Did they have a funeral?
I don't know if they did because I was so little.
Yeah.
But because of even people your age were so confused about what happened.
Yeah.
I don't see how they would be able to have a funeral with inviting everyone like they normally do.
I almost feel like they just wanted to brush it under the rug as much as possible. Because I only really heard about it from my mom talking about it. Because my mom was older. And my mom also did daycare. So it was a big thing.
Yeah.
Well, it was a big thing for everyone, I'm sure, at the time. But
And there was somebody that told me that they remembered that day. and they remember going to the office, and my grandma and my dad were talking, and there was like raised voices, and they were saying like, what are we supposed to do? What are we going to do now?
Wow. I just would like, I want to know what the hell your dad said about the whole thing and how, because even like hearing your stories of growing up, your dad treated your mom so bad after everything she did to save his ass.
Well, and that's what people would say, like, oh, Michelle's, like my mom, like, oh, she is cared about. Oh, she's one of the favorites. No, he keeps her just close enough so that she doesn't open her mouth about all of this, but far enough away so that she's not, like, actually a favorite. Like, she deals with, like, his cars were used to be in her name. His phone was in her name. It says, after the infant fell, Michaels called neighbors and friends first, including the Kingston leader, Paul, rather than calling 911. It says Michaels waited 45 minutes to an hour before calling emergency crews, which was how people say, like, why don't you just call the police? Why don't you just leave? You have to get permission.
Yeah. Even when my little brother had his foot sliced open and like needed stitches, my mom called my dad. Same with when he started having seizures. Like, you have to get it approved by the leadership. And I believe that's how a lot of deaths happen in the order. It's because they're doing that.
And so, like I said, my mom had to have supervised visits with us. The only time she could come around, she had to have supervised visits with us because she can't have kids around if their baby died in your care.
Yeah.
But another quote from my mom, I'm not guilty, but I'm pleading guilty. The sentencing date was December 19th, 2001. The DCFS, which it says, DCFS, which only recently returned Michael's own children to her, said positive things about her as a mother. They only saw good things in her. It says there's no name of Jesse anywhere, my dad.
So it doesn't even talk about her being married or her having a...
Nothing.
So Jesse's name's not even on the internet anywhere.
But like I said, like they told her, either you both can go to jail or you can go to jail and these kids can still have their dad. And she's like being the good order member. And people would say, like, I don't understand why the order people are so brainwashed, or I don't understand, like,
That's
that.
all you know.
No, someone told me, I told them this story, and they said, I've never understood it until you told me that story, because the fear that she had to have felt, and like, she literally being backed into a corner saying, you can either do it yourself and miss out on your kids for however long it takes, or you can make all these kids miss out on their dad.
Yeah.
Because at that time, I'm my dad's 51st kid. So it was a year after I was born, so that must have been, what, like 55 at least.
But they use this to scare their followers too. Not even just in this, but like I'm sure you were scared to not go to the police, right?
Yeah.
Like, all of us have had fear of calling the police because of what they ingrain us. And I even had times where I told my dad, if he abuses the kids, I'm going to call the police. And he laughed and said that the police would be on his side. And I didn't have any reference to know if he was lying or not, because all we knew is what we grew up in.
Well, and that's what in our family, they said if you call the police, they're going to take you away from your mom. Because we were. She called the police and we were taken away from my mom.
So then the rest
So
of your
we
life,
knew
you're
that.
so afraid to ever, because they're the bad guys.
And
now.
and that's the thing, we know that, like, I knew my mom was nicer than my dad. Like, my mom was my friend. My mom was, like, she was at least nicer than my dad. So it's like, why would I want to call the police on Jesse if the only person they're going to take me away from is my mom?
Right. There's a lot of us have a big sense of that guilt too. It sucks because it's like you end up enabling and protecting the abusers for fear of hurting people like your mom or people who are innocent in a sense. But at the end of the day, like, I mean, are they all really innocent? You know what I mean?
Well, and it says neither Kingston nor Wright's conduct were ever investigated during the process.
Paul was never investigated?
It took him a while to even, like, own up that was his kid. I don't know how long, but it said, like, Kingston has finally come forward and claimed her as his daughter.
Wow. Do you think that anyone was paid off? Like, what's the guy's name? Mark Shurtleff? Or the cop that's, like, their favorite?
Mark Shurtleff was the attorney general for a while.
Was he
At
touching
first,
this case at all?
well, around this time they were he was not on their side, but after this he got on their side, from what I was told. But
there are a few cops' names where we know, and I even knew when I was leaving the order that they were on the order side.
yeah, you don't want to run into them. Like, if you run into them, say, I changed my mind, and go find someone else.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Like, even the story, I'm going to make sure, you guys should watch, I'll have multiple stories in the description box down below, but I talk about that cop that was on the scene of yours, and then another cop that showed up that was trying to get me to not press charges on the Kingston men. Like, they have people in their pocket, and so I believe that the only way they were able to pull this whole thing off was money and having the right people in the right places.
And there was actually another case that was similar to this a few years back, because it was after I left the order. And because I was in Vegas after I had Harper, and we went to Vegas for my birthday. Yeah, so May 6, 2019. We went to Vegas for my birthday, and it says children removed from house where 1-year-old died. This baby, they said he fell down the stairs. And
how old was this baby? Why don't I
one.
remember this?
One, it was recent. So in 2019, the police contacted me, and they, like, someone gave them my number, some ex-order member gave them my number, and they were saying, we need to talk to you about this incident. And then I was like, I didn't even know what happened. And they said, and then news articles started coming through, like messages from ex-order members, and the news articles say parents claim that 1-year-old fell down the stairs. Here, I'll just read it. Shortly after, West Jordan police began investigating the death of a 1-year-old as suspicious. 1-year-old boy as suspicious. 5 other children removed from the house and placed into protective custody, according to police. On April 11th, police were called to the house where Elliot Evans Keddington allegedly fell down the stairs and was unresponsive. Sorry, I'm like breathing a lot. This is a lot of heavy information.
It is, and it's almost like I want to just send this to an editor and have them read all of this stuff. But
that's why I was telling you,
you
you can't listen to this over and over again.
I'm not gonna edit this one at all. There's no way. I can barely hear it too. Even though it's like we grew up like thinking that it's true, but when you
grow up getting beat, you're like, oh, I can handle it. But I had never heard those lists of her like fractures, and that her tongue was almost in her teeth. I'm like, there's no way.
Yeah, and the ridiculous part too is it's like you were raised to trust that man. Like, it wasn't just for me. It's a story of my uncle, right?
Well, but I never like. I always, for me, because I always heard like whispers and I never knew what it was. But for me, it was like, this is like cliche, but it was always like that my real dad is gonna come save me from this man. Because it was Uncle Jesse.
Oh.
So I was like, my real dad will come save me. I will never have to see him again. I will never have to deal with him. And then when I sat and got told that he was my dad, I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
This is from where I'm from.
Yeah. Because in the order we are taught, if you're not from the first wife's family, and especially because you were in like the incest situation, your dad was the uncle, the mom was the niece, then you couldn't know who your dad was, so you could be trusted with that information. And for me too, I didn't know who my dad was. He lied straight to my face. But see, I wanted a dad really bad, but I guess you were like anyone but this guy.
Yeah, I was saying like on Cinderella, when she has the evil stepsisters, evil stepmother, and it was like that, except it was my dad. I was like, it's the evil stepdad, and it's the evil stepsisters, and all these other moms. My real dad will just gonna come find me and save me.
And then you realize that he's your dad.
Yeah, but in this, so this child is Paul's grandson. This one right here.
Okay, so we're going back to the story of in 2019. This boy had allegedly fell down the stairs. How old was he again?
He was 1.
Only 1 year old.
About the same age. And they said doctors at the Primary Children's Hospital, the same hospital, however, discovered a broken leg, rib fractures, and other bruises, and they do not believe a fall down the stairs would result in a broken femur, head trauma, then leading to no breathing and no heartbeat. And I remember going to talk to the police because they were like, this sounds very similar to your mom's case. And I remember literally sitting with the police, and the police said the mom was so heartbroken, but the dad of the child didn't even care.
Wow.
Like, he was smiling, walked right up to us. Hi, how are you doing?
Yeah.
And they were like, it was like, there's no way to explain it. And I was like, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
But they said, and they told me, they said this baby's retina was detached. That means part of their eye.
What the hell?
And they said, just a fall down the stairs.
Oh my god. This is making me want to throw up.
And it's just, like, all these...
Did anyone go to jail for that one? Did anyone get... Oh my god. So, this is really, really hard. I mean, I'm sure it's really hard for you guys to listen to, but it's even for us, because this is not, like... These are our family members.
Mm-hmm.
And these are not the only cases, by the way. This is just who.
These are the ones in the news. These are the ones that make it to the news.
Mm-hmm. And the reason we're bringing it up is because this 2019, like, this is ridiculous. It's ridiculous that this stuff is still happening and people are still getting away with it.
Mm-hmm. And I got a call when, like I said, I was in Vegas, and I got a call from the police, and they're like, hey, can we sit down and talk to you? We saw that there was an incident with, like, your mom, kind of similar to this. Can we talk to you? And I was like, yeah, I'm actually out of town.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I guess.
You're, like, just trying to enjoy your birthday, and then it's getting brought back up.
Well, but it's like, normally we can make jokes about our trauma, because it's me. Like, I can joke about the times I was hit, because I'm still alive to joke about it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, these kids are not. And nobody gave them, like, a proper, like, attention, a proper, like...
Yeah, it's like they never had a fighting chance.
Well, no one has given them, like, justice, because not only did someone who didn't do it and who truly loved, like, my mom, when she says that she loved Rhoda, she really did. We went to her grave every single year,
Wow.
and we always put flowers by her grave, and that was, like, the one grave that my mom would tear up and, like, sometimes even cry when we were there.
Wow.
And she stayed at her grave the longest. And it was just, like, little signs that I would pick up on and be like, what happened?
Your dad is such a psychopath. And I think he deserves... Like, I think we all can agree he deserves... I think he should be in prison forever.
How do I say... Like, when we did my part 1, then I'm like, the part about my story is the part where I lived with my grandma, but how do I say this whole story that without, like, brushing it under the rug? Like, it needs to be brought up. Like, we need to discuss it,
Mm-hmm.
and not just have it be, like, one line here or there.
Right. But also, it's like...
It's so traumatic. How do
Yeah,
you even
how do you
approach
dive
it?
into that story? But also, you had so much... I feel like you had obviously way more loyalty to your mom.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not wanting to hurt your mom in the process of telling this story. But at the end of the day, you can't deny...
And for the longest time, I didn't talk about it with people because I didn't want to hurt my mom.
Yeah.
But then, like, as I've grown and healed, then I'm thinking, like, how is it hurting my mom for being honest and telling people that it wasn't her, she didn't do it,
Mm-hmm.
and confirming what she's always said? Because, like, that's not hurting my mom, and if she thinks that it is, that I can't do anything about that.
Yeah. And the thing is, too, is it's at this point, it's not even just about your mom anymore. Like, the death rate for children in the order is a disgusting... Like, I thought that it was normal to be having the baby funerals as much as we did because we just had so many kids.
Mm-hmm.
But thinking about how many babies actually died in the order, and not just from, like, the inbreeding and whatever else was going on, the neglect, the parents not knowing how to take care of so many kids at a time, not calling the police but calling Paul, thinking Paul's going to help. Like, there were times
There was babies drowned in the tub,
Mhm.
babies that...
Even giving birth. Like, I know of stories where Paul was there and he didn't want them to call the police because he was still there and the baby died when he was helping deliver babies. So there's been so many times where... And it's like the children, and we were children in the order. We were not treated as a child should be treated. We were not valued. We were not cherished, because if you're taught to have 10 kids, right? If you're taught to have a kid every year, boom, 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 one dies. Oh, just have another one next year. It's like cattle. It's like raising cattle, and we can say that we grew up there as kids.
Well, and that child that I said, like, the way that I found, like, the blanket, that child that died... because my mom was scared to call my dad because she didn't want him to be upset. that child that died, my dad told her that the reason that baby died was because she was focusing too much on herself and her kids and not on him.
He blamed her.
Because she had businesses of all the funerals. Remember how she would do the flowers for funerals? He said that you're focusing too much on that business than you are on him.
So he completely doesn't take any responsibility for any of it.
And then she literally begged him. She said, "Can I just have one more kid, please?" Because she felt like crap, obviously, after that.
Mm-hmm.
So she felt like crap, and she's like, "Can I just have one more kid?" And so she begged for that last kid that she had.
Wow. Why wouldn't he want to have a kid? Don't they all want
Well,
to
to
have
punish
kids?
to punish
Just to
her.
make her feel guilty?
Well, because my dad, if he
Manipulation.
can hurt someone, he will do that 5 times over.
He's such an ass.
Well, and
I'm starting to disassociate a little bit. I don't know if you are.
well,
You.
and
I'm trying to get through the rest of this video, but
literally,
my mind's going somewhere else now.
she would have been almost my age
Yeah.
when I was leaving, because I was gonna wait, maybe one day I'll write a book and I'll put it in there. But I'm no, everybody deserves to hear Rhoda's story. Mm-hmm. Rhoda deserves the justice. Mm-hmm. Rhoda can't talk for herself. Elliot can't talk for himself.
Yeah.
And nobody on their side is obviously telling the truth.
And I would hope that this story, I hope a lot of things that come out of this video, but I hope for the most part that Order members acknowledge it and they, you guys are there. Don't stand up and protect the abusers. You guys need to come together and realize that.
Well, even if it's just oh, it's just one hit, it's just one slap, it's just one this. One thing turns to another. And if it's they're just this old. They're just this old. Well, she was just 18 months and it killed her.
And I hate when people are sorry, I'm getting really heated up on the subject, but people are always well, I didn't see that happen, or well, it wasn't me that was doing it, but you were there watching it. So are you going to say that you weren't part of the problem when you were sitting there watching it happen and then pretending that it didn't happen? Once what is that quote? There's the quote that a lot of people keep sending me. The only way for evil to triumph is for the good men to do nothing. And this is really why I think the Order is still so successful, because of whatever reason you think that you need to protect the abusers, guilt, shame, family's gonna, it is hard. It is hard to come to that point, but isn't it harder to realize that you're enabling this stuff to happen? That's what I think the reason why we left was because we couldn't fucking put up with it.
And that's what people say, oh, it was all these years. Sorry, I'm on the verge of tears, but
I'm gonna throw up.
People say, oh, it was back in 2001. No, it happened again in 2019. Mm-hmm. And you see all the bruises. You see kids with bruises everywhere in the Order. You can stand up for it, and you can say, we're not going to put up with it anymore.
Yeah, the only way for it to change is for people to start standing up. And you see it around you. You see the neglect. You see the kids that aren't being taken care of. You see the ones that are just being thrown into the car. And you've seen
no
the
seat
accidents
belts
that have happened where the babies have died. They're
and that's
everywhere.
What, even my half-sister, her daughter died because she had her car clear full of kids, and none of them was buckled.
Yep.
One of her daughters died, and her son was in the hospital. He had a broken leg.
Yeah, and then even another one where it was just neglect. The mom didn't even know how to take care of the kid because she was so young, and so she left the baby in the car seat and the baby died. There's just so many times where there could have been.
And those ones aren't really talked about. Those aren't even in the news.
Yeah, and so our whole point of forcing ourselves to go through this hell is so that it's not going to be brushed under the rug. I'm getting so frustrated because I've had these arguments with people who are still in the Order and people who've left, and they say things like, oh, well, why don't you just move on with your life, or, oh, well, just because a few of these bad things happen doesn't make the Order as a whole bad. Paul Kingston himself helped cover up a murder.
Of his daughter.
To make things worse, of his own kid. So what in your brain makes you think that if the leader of a group is doing that, then it makes, I don't understand, and I get it, a lot of the times you just don't want to see it for what it is, because then you have to come to the reality of what is real, and that you're going to have to make a decision of if you're going to stay and support that or leave. So I guess at the end of the day, we're just doing our part. We're doing what we know best to do, and we hope that that encourages you guys to do the best. Like, I'm angry right now. I'm
And
so
and
mad
I
right now.
understand, like, outside people, they say, why is the state putting up with this? Like, and why is, like, DCFS not doing enough? Why are the police not doing enough? Like, I understand that frustration because I was there. I was on the other side in the order thinking, why don't they just arrest my dad? But at the same time, like, you heard the police. The police officer told them what he saw. The surgeon told them what they saw. But the judge, he knew in his heart it wasn't my mom. And so,
But
and
no
she
one
wasn't, my mom wasn't willing to give up anyone's name. So the judge has to come down. Do I punish someone who's innocent? Or do I wait until hopefully she'll get it out there? So it comes like, there are good police out there. There are good, like, DCFS workers out there that helped me personally, that helped you in their own way. But, like, there's like anywhere. There's good and bad apples, but the good just needs to keep standing up.
Yeah.
The good in
And
the
that's
police,
what-
the good in us.
That is one thing. I think that's the last thing that I feel like I want to say is I am just going to encourage the order members. Sorry, I keep talking to order members. I know a lot of people are going to be watching this, but I'm kind of triggered by a lot of that talk because I feel like that talk is excuses. Like the order members talking about, well, it wasn't me, or I saw it, but I didn't do it. I just want to really, really encourage you. If you love the order so much, then don't you want to make it better? Don't you want to be a better person? Don't you want to be, better for the kingdom of God? Then do something. And stand up for these kids who are helpless.
But again, reading the injuries straight up broke me. She almost bit through her tongue. Mm-hmm. There's no way that something can't be done from people in the order. Just tempers can be lost, but that is never a way to treat a child. Ever.
I wanted to end this on a happy note, but I honestly don't know how. I guess the only thing I can think of right now that's a positive thing is I really do appreciate that outsiders have been so
supportive.
Yeah, so you guys have been so supportive, and there have been ex-order members. I'm not calling out all of you guys because there have been ex-order members and people in there that are trying to help. Even that time where, remember when we went and called the police on the house of the kid that was alone in the home? We had people reaching out from the order giving us the address information. They were too afraid to let us know who they were, but they wanted to help. So
we do appreciate that. Mm-hmm. And we understand that you are doing it in the way that you know, but just find the strength in you to take it a step further.
Yeah, and what I like to think of, even when I was in the order, was if it's your little sister, or just think of every person that's going through the stuff they're going through, if it was your little sister, or someone that you can't stand watching go through these things. Because that is someone's little sister, just have each other's backs like you guys preach that you do, And so I really appreciate, though, the ones that have, and the ones that have reached out and wanted to help, and the ones that are trying. There are a lot of you, and I really appreciate that. And I also really appreciate the outsiders that are willing to help as much as they have. And, holding out help, honestly, was one of the best things for me.
I wish I went through holding out help.
But helped a lot.
But also, Rhoda's gravesite is at the Bountiful Cemetery in the baby section. All of us order members know where the baby section is, sadly, but it's over there. And just as you're walking down, I remember all of us walking down all the rows and wondering which ones are order members because there were so many. Mm-hmm. I remember saying, Mom, will you list out which ones are order members? And there were so many. Abuse happens, and there's some people reach out to me and say, oh, my dad's not abusive, or I'm not going to be abusive. I understand that. But are you encouraging the incest, which can be harmful to your child's life?
Here's the thing, too, is, there's always going to be room to improve. And if you're going to sit there and be like, oh, I don't need to do anything to help this place improve, then you're part of the problem. Mm-hmm. So I know I'm starting to get scoldy, but it's frustrating because I grew up there, too, and I watched it happening all around. I'm like, why is no one doing anything? Mm-hmm. And why are parents okay? It's like they could turn their brain off and just beat the shit out of their kid. I never understood that. But
well, and also in a fit of rage, I understand, in my healing journey, I obviously have 2 kids, in my healing journey, there were times where I'm like got very frustrated that not that I lashed out, because I have never and I will never hit my kids. Either one of them. I have never and I will never. But there had been times where I get like very frustrated and I recognize I need to walk away. But for the parents in the order, they're too stubborn to walk away because they don't want it to seem like a win to the child. But it's not a win. You can discuss it and you can use your words. There's never a reason to hit a child.
It's so ironic that this is the God's kingdom on earth, but it's like one of the highest rates of children dying. Like, I don't understand how those two can be the same thing, right? And they're not dying of natural causes either. I think that's all that we have to say about that. And I just want to close this out with, because I've had a lot of people actually asking recently, I don't know why, but for therapy options, for like where they can go to if they need a place. And I always have Holding Out Help's information in the description box down below. They're where I got free therapy. They're the ones that help me learn how to apply to a job, since we don't know that kind of stuff in the order. So I always have their phone number down below, and they usually, I think they're pretty good at responding. So if you are someone who's trying to leave a polygamous cult, all of the information is in my description box down below.
And for outside people, like, there's always a quick internet search. You can look at their reviews. You can ask around. You shouldn't be ashamed to want to go to therapy. Everyone can approve, and going to therapy is like analyzing different situations and understanding how you can handle it better. It doesn't mean that you did something wrong or that you're wrong in the head. It doesn't mean any of that.
Yeah. I hate the idea that people think therapy is for crazy people. I've heard ex-order members say, like, oh, I'm not crazy. You need therapy, we all need therapy, and it's only going to help better you. And this may hopefully help someone who needs to hear it, even on the outside. I didn't know that your health insurance can actually cover therapy, because there was a time where I was like, I'm not going to go to therapy because I can't afford it. But then I was told that I had 3 options, 3 different therapists that took my insurance that would be completely covered. So that is an option too, if it's, because it is expensive.
But even just going to a therapist and saying, hey, can you help me understand how I got to this decision? Or can you help me give me a different perspective? It's not, oh, you're broken, go to the therapist. That's not what it is.
We are not born with how to process things in a healthy way. We all didn't get the same cards dealt.
And even like if our parents didn't teach you how to deal with it in a healthy way, then like this is like a chance for you to help yourself, to be a better sibling, to be a better parent, to be a better anything.
And have a better relationship with yourself. So there really is no downside to it. But
yeah.
Thank you guys all for watching and for being so supportive, and I guess we will see you in the next video.
Yeah.